I got intuition going on right now. Excuse me, in ongoing, simultaneous, whatever, and larger than life things. There's a conversation. Okay, so now, see, there's something called a portrait. I have a portrait. And when you spell portrait, it's P-O-R-T. R-A-I-T. I have a portrait. My son, the fourth one, the year 2012, he has a portrait, same portrait as my own, in fact. Genetically, we're just a carbon copy of the photo for which we come out looking like, for expectations. Most people that I meet, they are paintings. Sometimes I will use my reference interchangeably, but there is a significant difference, as with any spell in witches and warlocks and anatomy cases and genetic databasing and so on and so forth, that alien genetics. Normally, we don't make things so public, but apparently there's some like U.S. locked up judicial system, I don't know where. There's some federal locked up judicial system, I don't know where. And then there's some, let's think what this, there's federal, oh, and then there's a national, that's my ring finger, national judicial system that's locked up somewhere. And I don't know, because I mean, again, these cases go, I mean, I'm, which drives the Germans crazy, and I'm sorry, but the Swedes get a real kick out of it. It's eins, as in one, and then brecka, like broad. It's just two words. It's a compound word. That's it. It's only relevant in my one, I know, like, you know, the intonations, the way that she speaks or pretends to speak. She doesn't even pretend to speak German, honestly. It's like witches, warlocks, and just enough to get by in a different dexterity in order to audio lock whatever needs to be done at preciseness. Let's think about this for one's own self, by the way, which takes precedence. Oh yeah, here's the thing. Okay, so hold on a second. Let me go back for a second to, okay, so I call one of my favorite people to stare at, like if he was a movie star, he'd be like the Brad Pitt of the local area in genetics. We'll call him my mid-size SUV. Now, he's not my type necessarily. Again, his demeanor, like well, I mean, he can be demonstrative. I can see that, but not to me, because we play a good tune together. Like I am uber respectful of his. And this is the other thing. I call him many things, but one of my things in my most important genetic database that I'm trying to relock is tomato eggplant. I gave eggplant vegetable specifically to a Aryan, but not the Aryan that I am, and then that got confusing, so we're going to leave Aryan off of there. But I only use the word possibly because it's definitely not. Michael Mirza once said, your eggplants, they get really mad. They call themselves Mullion, and they don't understand. And I'm like, now I was all of like, I don't know. I think we said 1987. It was our 10-year bon anniversaire for Alice's Lesbos women's movement in making all the men and the future children suffer for their whatever, for their uprise and anarchy. So that was 1987. Here we are in year 2020. Nobody has been able, I mean, the woman's all of like
what, 5'4", 5'5" at the most. You really can't overtake a woman that's that short. I mean, she's not well built either. Anyway, so my one example of a Brendan Burns and my one example of a man spelled Jarrod, with the tattoo God something or other on his hand, love God on his hands, right? Yeah, that is not anything. That is a different genetic. Doesn't structurally look the same to my tomato eggplant reference. The color of the flesh tone does not look anything eggplant. So I don't want you all to get confused, because I know if you're painting a portrait or you're painting a painting, you could use a little darker, like they used to call it indigo. It came from a very special snail that you had to dig out of the dirt. And it was a very highly, it was like a royal treat in order to find those and be able to paint with those. Right, yeah. So, but in my usage of it for genetic database lock, it goes with a peach, my color would be like more of like a peach tone, and then you would add in like as an after brush a little bit of a tomato eggplant hue into the peach, but as a brush, like just like a little tint, not like a, like strong marker for what I usually call a melanin rich, but then that gets confusing if you look at the way that the word is built. I realized that after I had used reference of it quite a lot in a different, but it was actually in a different market and venue and court system for what I also used to call in Ethiopia the sun-kissed. But again, there's been so much of the pattern migration and movement and the holy books, and some people have stayed so incredibly loyal to the words that they thought were assigned to them and their groups that I didn't have the heart to break it at the moment, because I have bigger problems with larger Alice Mirza type groups that are now varied in color, and whenever they speak English, they confuse and anger 100% of language database around the world since the moment I was born, and most likely probably just prior to my arrival. So with that being said, I try to use my words as carefully as possible, and on a per se, example, because like the IVF, we already said it. I don't know why they allowed it to be invested and for it to spring up on Long Island and New York area. And I heard it was big in other parts of the country and around the world. That was not going to be a investment that was acceptable. You humans were not allowed to build investment plans and build larger pools of money and so on and so forth on that type of science when it interfered with the high science crime that we are already dealing with in private places with the mad scientists. They're mad on many levels, mostly tempo, anger, and then their dishonesty, and then egocentric and arrogance as to being called out for being caught, and then causing gigantic ruckus and more people, and then like small clusters of like hemorrhoids on a venous, like a venous structure, and then small hemorrhoids clump, right? And then you have to surgically remove them, the whole thing. Otherwise, then, right, I mean, it grows and then becomes an obstruction of justice or an obstruction of bowel movement, if we're speaking in colostomy terms, right? Yeah. So that's why we don't keep the world's children that have already broken the law and then make them experts in other areas. Yeah, no, that doesn't happen. Because it just like there's Here's the thing. I have a clock. I have a secret special clock. I'm Special Agent Kataruza Hitler. Day I was born, I was crowned Gunder, whatever those words mean in actuality, and as it pertains to all of humanity within my time frame. So that's just the truth of the universe. Then I have somebody who was already learned because they had several years of schooling, of information and data breaches. They had prior family members that were part of larger organizations such as the Royal Military elsewhere, perhaps the FBI, perhaps the CIA. They had large groups and community events and whatnot. And it's like a whole society of magical, like Harry Potter people all to themselves that don't speak muggle stupid as to like, wait, now you're going to have to catch me up on this because I went to public school in New York. And that means I know nothing. And but I'm willing to learn and pay attention and help out. But I'm lost, right? Yeah, they know that, and they laugh about that, and that's a real big problem. So I have the clock. They knew about it because they learned inside information. They leaked information. They were not held accountable. The process was justice was not swift enough with the work that I was doing prior to my genetic reappearance as little human, considering I am what I am, along with my genetic appearance of Benjamin in the correct skin. I mean, we're a whole traveling pod. So, I mean, we came to defend ourselves before our bodies entered said system to make sure that we had the defense or the execution team in place already. What I don't understand is how quickly the space engineers, the information technology, the communication experts, like how did all of this grow so effervescently like a soda bottle that you shake and then you open the pressurized cap and all the foam just goes whoosh through the little tiny hole up and out. And you're like, whoa, boy, that's gonna be a big mess. Right, yeah. Where was the essential bounty of Brawny and whatnot that had the one paper towel to wipe up all the mess and foam that's spilled all over the pressurized floor for the rest of it? I'm just curious. Because here's the thing. They stole my equipment. They studied themselves. They are doing all sorts of nasty criminal things. We told you who they were, and what they were all about. We expected results on our behalf and not then tripping each other up with, okay, well, but these are our time clock abuses that chase back to the owner. Right, but the owner is the one who's the victim because she keeps vaporizing in random spots and doesn't know how to make it stop or when it's going to happen or who is even in control of that kind of equipment while she's just reborn and waiting for her betrothed and for her life to begin. She just wants love of him and a child, and that's it. And the rest of you, we don't need to answer to, right? So she has somebody else using equipment in devious ways that law enforcement's not taking care of, and then other law enforcement is locking up the girl from her future and her destination by saying that she's abusing her extra specialness and hurting the people somehow by abuse of the clock, right? But that's what we're fighting on her behalf to get her clock returned, but your people don't want to come to terms with their part that they took in totally disrupting the entire process of judicial system and in a swift manner. And so now mass chaos is spreading like soda foam in a pressurized system